When Amina first saw the prince, the sun was sinking low, setting the savannah ablaze in gold. The air shimmered with heat, and drums echoed faintly from the village square. He came riding a white horse, his robes flowing like river silk, his crown gleaming with the pride of his kingdom. Every girl in the village gasped, except Amina. She crossed her arms and turned away. "A man's worth," she said softly, "is not in the shine of his gold, but the truth in his heart." Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you re-watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The prince, whose name was Kamau, had traveled far from his palace in search of a wife, not for beauty or power, but for wisdom and compassion. His father, the old king, had told him, "A kingdom ruled by love stands longer than one ruled by fear." Kamau believed it. Yet when he arrived at Amina's village, the women sang praises, the elders bowed low, and gifts poured from every hand, all except hers. Amina was different. She was a weaver, quiet, patient, living in a small hut by the edge of the forest. Her mother had died when she was young, and her father, a poor farmer, had raised her to value kindness above everything. Kamau had heard whispers about her. "The girl who speaks her mind," they said. Intrigued, he approached her with humility. "Will you walk with me, Amina?" he asked. She looked at his jeweled hands and said, "You don't belong to the earth. You belong to gold. I have no wish to follow a man who doesn't know the dust." The prince's face hardened. No woman had ever spoken to him like that. He left in silence, his pride wounded, his heart confused. But the words stayed with him. "You don't know the dust." Months passed. The rains came and went. In the palace, the prince could not forget her. He found no joy in songs, no peace in luxury. So, one night under a full moon, he made a vow to return not as a prince, but as a man, unseen, unrecognized, and tested by the dust she spoke of. When Kamau came back, he was barefoot, wearing torn cloth, his once smooth hands now roughened by travel. He carried no gold, no sword, only a small carved bowl. To the villagers, he was a beggar. To Amina, he was a stranger at her doorstep. "Please," he whispered, "a little water." She studied him for a moment, the tired eyes, the trembling voice. Something in her heart softened. "Sit," she said gently. "You'll drink and eat here." Day after day, the beggar helped her in silence. He fetched water from the well, gathered firewood, mended her roof when it leaked. He never complained. The village children mocked him, calling him the Dust Man. But Amina defended him. "We all return to dust," she would say. "So, respect the dust." Weeks turned into months. Slowly, she began to see something familiar in his calm eyes, in the way he listened more than he spoke. One evening, as they sat beneath the baobab tree, he asked, "Would you still reject a man with nothing to offer but love?" Amina smiled faintly. "If his love is true, it is everything." He looked at her then, tears in his eyes. And before she could speak, he reached into his torn robe and pulled out a pendant, gold, shaped like a lion's head, glinting in the dying light. The crowd gasped. The beggar stood tall, his voice trembling as he said, "My name is Kamau. I am the prince you once turned away. I came to learn the truth in your words, and I found it." The village fell silent. Some bowed, ashamed. Others whispered in awe. But Amina, she simply stared. "You deceived me," she said quietly. "I deceived my pride," Kamau replied, "and found my heart." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a sigh that carried both sorrow and forgiveness, she stepped forward and took his hand. "Then may your heart always stay humble," she whispered. The next morning, the prince called the village together. He announced his wish to marry Amina, not because she was beautiful, but because she had taught him what true worth meant. The drums roared. The people cheered, and as they celebrated, Amina turned to the horizon, watching the dust rise like golden mist in the distance. She had once rejected a prince, but she had never rejected love, because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And somewhere, under that vast African sky, the dust shimmered softly, a reminder that the richest hearts are those who know the weight of the earth beneath their feet. If you loved this story, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who believes in love that goes beyond riches, and subscribe to Whispered Words for more timeless African folk tales that warm the heart and stir the soul. Tell me in the comments, do you think Amina was right to test the prince's heart?